Well, good morning. Today we're venturing off on a journey, a short journey, 350 kilometers. So I've got the truck charged to 100%. Now the guessometer says I have 520 kilometers of range, but I figure about 350 at highway speeds. So we're headed to Fort Frances from Kakabeka Falls, which is about 330, 340 kilometers. Let's hope the weather holds out. Decided to light snow this morning. So I've driven around 29 kilometers and I've lost over 50 kilometers of potential range according to the guessometer. So you can see I'm averaging 2.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is a little low because that's primarily uphill on the way west. I've got roughly 290 kilometers to go, so I should be okay. So we've turned onto the Atikokan highway and we have roughly 270 kilometers to go. We're down to 89% battery, gone 45 kilometers. Got the cruise set at 100 and heading west. We're climbing in altitude a bit, so that's a little bit harder. I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit better on the way home. We'll see. Frost, heavy frost this morning, and very light snow, and it's nagging me because I'm not looking at the road. Okay, I've got my eyes on the road. We're about to hit 25% of the battery consumed, and we've gone roughly 94 kilometers on 25%. I'm going to say probably the distance per kilowatt is improved slightly. It's 2.6 now because we're leveled off more, not climbing in altitude now as much. I figure about 95 kilometers on a quarter of the battery, so it's estimating 330 kilometers of range left. I have 224 kilometers to go, so we should be good. So we've hit 50% of the battery charge. We've gone roughly 190 kilometers, and it says I have 195 kilometers left, which is pretty accurate, I think, at this point. I'm averaging 2.7 kilometers. I've driven for 2 hours, so we have 127 kilometers to destination, so I should make it there with about 25% of the battery, 20 to 25% of the battery remaining. So we're down to 19% battery, but we only have 20 kilometers to go. It's guesstimating at 58 kilometers of range. So we're going to make it okay, but it's going to take a little bit more than I thought. Probably end up with about 10% left by the time I get there. I noticed the guesstimator gets more accurate the closer you get to empty. We're also reduced power now, 80% power, but it doesn't feel any different. So we made it to my buddy's place, 3 hours and 28 minutes, 316 kilometers. Now here's the challenge. We have to charge from his 240 volt plug-in in the garage, which is going to take several hours. So if you were planning to go back immediately, that's not happening. I need probably about 6 hours. I'll see when I plug in the charger how fast it's going to be. But we got here with 11% remaining. Truck ran awesome. I love this truck. So my buddy only had a NEMA 1430 plug, so we had to go to the hardware store and buy a 1450 plug to change it out. So we're going to be charged at 7:30 Sunday morning. So it's January the 1st, 2024, and I'm headed back to Kakabeka Falls from Fort Frances this morning. Got a full charge, well, 98%. And it's guesstimating 470 kilometers of range, but I know it's not going to make that. Be interesting to see how it fares now. It's a little colder today. It's -9, but it's sunny. So we're down to 50% battery, and I've traveled 168 kilometers, and it's saying I have 183 kilometers of range left, which is a little generous, I think. I think I have another 160. So we're gonna make it no problem, but I'm gonna have about 10% left by the time we get there. Still averaging about 2.7 kilometers per kilowatt. I don't know if Fort Frances to Atikokan is primarily uphill or not, but we'll pick up when I get back to Thunder Bay with Kakabeka. Well, I'm down to 12% battery. I got 32 kilometers of guesstimated range, and I have roughly 22 kilometers to go. I just got a message that says chargers are unreachable. Thanks. So I made it back with a whole 16 kilometers left, 6% battery. So I drove it to exactly 316 kilometers, average 2.8 kilometers. I think I got a little worse coming back because 11% for climate use. This says average 2.9 kilometers per kilowatt, but this on the dash says 2.8. So let's plug in the charger and see how long it's going to take to charge this thing. So I plugged into my fast charger. It's about 16 kilowatts, and it says it'll be charged to 85% at midnight tonight, and it's roughly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so that's a few hours.